I've been busy with real life stuff and haven't had much time to paint, so haven't done any videos lately. Figured I'd whip something up here and thought we can talk about paint because when people ask about paint, what paint should I use? You know, there's a lot of choices, and I thought I can go over some of those and give you some recommendations and ideas and other things that might be available in your area. As you can see, this is a very small selection of paint that I have here, and there's easily twice as many options that you have. When it comes to paint, I'm going to make some recommendations here, but take it with a grain of salt. Just because I like something doesn't mean that something else won't work for somebody else. I actually have this example that I use when it comes to choosing paints and brushes. I used to play pool a whole lot, and when people play pool, they always say you need have a straight cue. If you have a warped cue that you find like in a bar, you can't play pool properly. And I knew an old guy used to hang out at the pool hall, and he would say, "You want to play a game?" He'd say, "Sure." And he'd whip out a broomstick, literally a broomstick, with a tip glued to the end, and he just cleaned the table. And the moral of that story is, yeah, proper equipment does help, but it doesn't substitute raw talent and experience. So some of these things that I say are poor quality, I've seen a lot of people do, exceptional work with them. So just because I say something's bad doesn't mean you can't make it work. But let's get into this here, because I know I'm going to ramble on for a whole long time. So let's start with the biggies here. We're going to start with Vallejo's and Games Workshop paints. Now, Vallejo is what I use all the time, as you guys know. And there's several different ranges of the Vallejo. You got the model colors. There's 250 plus colors in the model color range. They are mostly matte colors, better suited for military models. You have the game color range, which is basically made to mimic the GW range. Colors tend to be much brighter, more cartoony. These are vinyl based, which means that they're a bit flexible. When they first came into the country, they were actually being marketed towards special effects people for use on like latex masks and equipment, things you would see in the movies, because the paint would flex. This is resin based, so it doesn't flex. They also have the Model Air range, which is made to go straight through an airbrush. I really like the metallics in the range because it's made with aluminum powder, meaning it's very fine. It goes on very smooth. You have the Panzer Aces range, which is just a sort of branded colors, slightly different shades, made for Panzer Aces magazine, so it's sort of a third-party-ish paint. And recently you have the Game Air, which I haven't actually played with yet. This is my only bottle. I got the Glorious Gold in hopes that, again, this would have a finer powder. It's probably not aluminum powder in here like the other Model Air range, but I wanted to test it out. And again, you can use it in airbrush without needing to thin it. So the reason why I like Vallejo is it's very high quality. The pigment is ground very fine. You have a overwhelmingly huge choice of colors. Between all the ranges, you must have 500 plus different colors you can pick from. And the main thing I like about them is that Vallejo doesn't sell anything except for paint. Now, the reason why that is important, because I have drawers full of paints from companies that no longer exist because the game that they made to go with the paints didn't sell, and so they went out of business, and therefore the paints went out of business as well. So Vallejo only sells paint, so they're not being restricted or tying this to any game, and there's no worry about them really going out of business because their game bombed or someone decided to play a new game. So they're going to be around for a long time. So Vallejo is my top number one recommendation. Let's go for number 2 here, the second most popular one on the list, not for me, but for all of you out here, Citadel. Now, I don't use Citadel. This is my only bottle of Citadel paint I have, and I have not even ever opened this one. I think this is one of their old Crackle mediums. I got it because it sounded cool. Is it even wet inside still? Oh, I got to pull the tab off. Oh, screw it. But anyway, the reason why I don't use Games Workshop is not because I hate GW or anything like that. It's just that as I was painting, different brands were coming out, and I just never gravitated towards Games Workshop and Citadel colors. The other reason why I don't use them is for the exact reason why I mentioned I like the Vallejo. This is tied to a gay company. Games Workshop does not make the paints themselves, and so as they've done in the past, they can change the manufacturer of the paints, and then this color or whatever color you like can be gone. They've actually done that twice in the past. So because they're getting it third party, you know, your favorite paints may go out of production and you won't be able to get them anymore. That's the only issue I have with Games Workshop. Quality wise, I really haven't used any, so I really can't comment on that. So there's our Vallejo and our Games Workshop. Speaking of Games Workshop, let's talk about Cote d'Arms. Now, the first manufacturer of paints for Citadel was HMG. When they switched to a different manufacturer and got rid of these really old bottles, HMG decided to keep continuing to make that paint line, just with all different names. So when people talk about the old Games Workshop paints, that's Cote d'Arms. It's all the exact same colors, just with different names on the bottles. You can even find conversion charts out there. Now, I use these for years, a long time. The Cote d'Arms paints are really good. They have a liquid pigment in them, so theoretically you don't need to shake them up, and they don't separate. Privateer Press's P3 paints, they're also made by HMG, so they're the exact same things as Cote d'Arms, just in different shades. Now, the reason why I stopped using Cote d'Arms is not because they got on a production or anything like that. The problem with Cote d'Arms, HMG I should say, is quality control. They have huge issues with quality control. I would find a bottle of, well, let's just say High Elf Blue that I have here that would go on really nice and be very opaque, and then I go to the store and buy another bottle and it would be very transparent. That's happened multiple times with different colors. There was a huge issue with black. They did something to the black. I don't know what it is, but it was like oil. You would put it on the miniature and it would just bleed off. It would not stick. And actually, if you turn the bottle upside down, all the paint would immediately just slide down, and you can leave the clear bottle here. The paint wouldn't even stick to the bottle itself. For those of you who use P3, you may have remembered a few years ago, Privateer Press had a problem with some other paint bottles actually exploding. Somehow there was being gas released inside, and you pull off the tab and the thing would blow out and get paint everywhere. So apparently that is still an issue with HMG. Good quality paints, bad quality control. So that goes for Cote d'Arms and P3 as well. Reaper paints, they're pro paints. They had a different line, which I'm pretty sure is out of production now, these squat bottles, and then they switched to these pro paint lines. I've had these for years. I played around with them a little bit. A lot of the paints that I got after... What the hell is that? Sorry, that's a piece of flock. Where'd that come from? I got these after I got Vallejo, so I didn't play around with them a whole lot. I did fiddle with them briefly. They're pretty good. They just had an funny texture to them that I really couldn't just nail down. I really can't describe it, but something was just slightly off with them. But there's nothing horrible about them. I really just haven't played around with them enough to get used to them. I'm sure if I got used to them, they'd be totally fine. Good thing about Reaper, good thing about Reaper is they actually manufacture their own paint in shop. So this is not rebranded paint. This is not done by a third party. Reaper makes their own paint. So that's really good. You also get little skull pewter agitators inside, which when you're done with the bottle, shake those out and you can use them on your models. Army Painter paints. A lot of people are familiar with the Quick Shade Army Painter, Quick Shades. The wood finish, wood stain in a bottle, in a jar that you can use to quickly shade your paints. They have a very small line of paints that are supposed to match equally their spray bottles. I haven't really used any of those. I have this bottle of Greedy Gold, which seems fine, no issues with it. I thought that Vallejo at one point made their paints, because paint bottles tend to be patented. So if you see similar paint bottles from two different game companies, they're probably being made by the same paint manufacturer. But I'm trying to find, because I thought I had a... if you can see here, the bottles are slightly different shaped, even though they look extremely similar. And I thought I had some ones, Vallejo ones, that were more square on top, but I'm not seeing any ones right now. I'm not entirely sure who makes these for War Painter, or if they make, Army Painter, or if they make them themselves. This is made in France, and I know Vallejo is in Spain, so probably not. This is probably being manufactured either by Army Painter or somebody else. Not bad. What I really like with the Army Painter are the shade colors, the dark tones, and their strong tone, I think soft tone. If you're looking for just a quick shade, you just slap this on like a wash. It's kind of thick and gelatinous, but it does a quick shade and doesn't take much effort or talent to shade your models very quickly. So these are pretty good when you need to paint something fast in a pinch. Enamels. Let's talk about enamels real quick. Enamels are pretty old school. Not very many people use enamels anymore, just because they're toxic and they're very hard to clean up and they're very difficult to use. And I started painting with these back in the Beyond times, and I kept having to steal rugs from other parts of the house when I was a kid, because I dropped so many of these on my carpet and I had to hide it from my mom. But with enamels, like I said, you can't layer them. How I used to use them would be you put on a base coat and then just do a black wash, but you had to be very careful, because if you brushed over the same area twice, you'd peel up the previous coat. And I think these cost about $1.29 now. I used to get these for 19 cents. Yeah, I'm old. A lot of people still like enamels for metallics, but now with the Model Airs out, I think they're better, or they match the quality, probably better quality than with the enamels, and these are just so much easier to use. So I do not recommend enamels. Oh, that's what I want. Ichor. I should have mentioned that while I was talking about the Coty arms. When I mentioned about paint manufacturers going out of business, Ichor paints. Can't find them anymore. Somewhere I have Nitro paints too, which 99% of you don't even know who that is. But yeah, colors like these, they just, when you get them from a different company, again, same manufacturer, this one doesn't exist anymore, this one does. So keep that in mind. Craft paint, Delta Coat, there's some Americana, I believe, or a few other ranges. You find these at Michael's and what have you. Very cheap. This bottle probably cost a little buck something, $1.50, probably even a bit less. The pigments are not ground very well. If you thin them out too far, the paint breaks down. You can see actual granules in the paint. It is extremely cheap. This little bottle will last you a lifetime. And I have seen people do remarkable results with these. I just can't use them myself because the quality is not there. But if price is an issue, go with that. Raupartha. This is an old bottle. I'm not sure if Raupartha became Iron Wind Metals, and they were producing their own paints. I don't know if they still are now. Pretty poor quality paints, but they make great, figure holders for when painting. There's one right there. That's the best use I have for my old Raupartha paints. This is actually one of their inks, and they were the first ones to make the easy-to-use inks rather than the standard traditional inks. They made ones that you can just slap on like this, like your Games Workshop Delvin Mud. Raupartha was the first people to do that. So this, I have several bottles of their inks left. I haven't used them in ages, but Still liquidy in there, but you just slather it on and it works perfectly fine. The rest of the paints, though, pretty poor quality in this day and age. They were fine 20 years ago, but in this day and age, yeah, you don't want to use Ironwind metals or Raupartha paints anymore. And then Tamiya. Now, Tamiya is an acrylic paint. However, it's actually more of an alcohol paint. And I got a big cracked bottle here. What happened to that? You can't really thin this with water. These work better with an airbrush. Trying to brush them on, the paint tends to get very goopy real fast because of the alcohol inside. And I call it an alcohol-based paint. Well, the reason for that is there's alcohol in it. The reason why it says acrylic paint, even though there's alcohol in it, is because it's the ratio and it has something to do with the chemical formulation. It's kind of like beer is alcohol, but the main ingredient in beer is water. It's that type of thing. So you can really thin it with water or clean your brushes with water, but really you need some sort of alcohol base to thin it, some odorless thinner or something. Not recommended for brush painting. Airbrushing tanks, one color, works fine. Airbrushing, it goes on really good. It goes on very smoothly, but brushing it on, no, you want to stay away with from Tamiya. And then finally, this is a true alcohol-based paint. This is Vallejo alcohol metallic, which is completely solid. Ew, that's nasty. Alcohol-based, oh, there's some liquid still in there. Maybe I can save this. But alcohol-based metallics, a lot of people like because they go on extremely smooth. You kind of see on the bottom there. The metallic flakes on it are very fine. If you want a very smooth, very bright metallic surface, you can go with this. The problem is it dries extremely fast, even faster than the Tamiya. And it's a little difficult to work with. And you really can't highlight it using layers. You have to put this on and then put on an acrylic wash to shade. But if you want to play around with it, fine. Not something I completely recommend because it's a whole different ball game trying to use these. And again, I haven't really played around with them too much. I tried them, didn't like them. So use at your own discretion. But alcohol-based metallics are available from Vallejo if you so choose. Just remember to shake the bottle up every once in a while. So there you go. All these different paints you have to choose from. Again, I would go with Vallejo because that's what I always use. But choose whichever one you like. I would stay away from the Raupartha, the cheapy craft paint. For brushing, stay away from the Tamiya. Enamels are gone. Alcohol gone. Ichor definitely gone. So you have essentially Vallejo to choose from, Games Workshop, Cote d'Arms, War Painter, and Reaper. And if I were to put these in order, well, I put those two, number 1, number 2, Vallejo, Cote d'Arms, and these kind of probably like that, since I haven't played around with the rest of them. Reaper, War Painter really haven't used, Games Workshop really haven't used. But there you go. So there's some paints for you to choose from. Hope this helped. Thanks for watching.